Hello, my friends. One more time. Here we go for the final video of the Railways of Cartoonia, and it is Tillie's Tricky Travels and Other Stories. So, there's not much to go on this, except this is going to be a half an hour long episode. So that's pretty good. We're probably going to get a little bit longer episode. So if you're all ready, here we go in 3, 2, 1, start. The Railways of Cartoonia. Tillie's Tricky Travels and Other Stories.
Tillie, the little engine, had been working very hard. Ever since her great rescue of the fairy tale Arrow, Miss Ella had been assigning her more out-of-the-yard work, which made her very happy indeed.
Good.
She loves visiting new places and meeting the other engines who help run the railway. One day, Mrs. Ella had an important job for her. "We've got some spare parts from the works to go to the mainland and some goods bound for Pinewood Island scheduled for the noon Pinewood goods. I need you to take them to Gradinia Bay so they can be brought to their respective destinations." "Oh, yes, ma'am," said Tillie excitedly. Gradinia Bay is one of the biggest stations and towns on the Crotonian main line, and there were lots of friends she knew there, like Scarloey and Rheneas, the narrow gauge engines, and Piper, the steam electric shunter. She collected the spare parts from the goods shed where Farnsworth was getting oiled up from his morning local run. "Well, if it isn't the little switch engine who's off to haul a real engine's train," he said dismissively. "Now, Farnsworth," said Jason, "wasn't it her who took a train you inadvertently caused to derail?" It shut him up instantly. As Tillie backed down on the freight cars, an awkward clinking sound was heard. It was like a pair of exercise weights being bumped together. But outside of the freight cars, nobody else heard it. Tillie soon collected her cars from the goods depot and set off for the junction. But the clanging noise kept ringing out, and the shunters who were fastening cars together in the yard were very worried. As she passed through the cuttings between Colville and Gradinia Bay, the clanking seemed to get louder and louder. Until... clang! One of Tillie's glides got jammed. Now it would be much harder to push her driving wheels along. But Tillie didn't want to stop to let another engine take over. "I shouldn't give up. What will Mrs. Ella say if I told her I'd broken down with a very important train?" So the little engine decided to press on. She passed through a nearby halt where the Greendale rocket was taking on water. As she passed through, there was a small hissing sound that seemed to follow her. "Tillie," called the rocket, "did you fill up with water before heading out with the train?" But it was no use. She was next to the brake van by the time her message was finished. Soon, Tillie reached the busy town of Gradinia Bay. Trucks rattled past on the roadways and overpass, construction cranes whizzed about with their work, and there stood the big hill just before the station.
Oh my.
"Whoop whoop," whistled Henry, who was passing through with an express freight. "Mind the hill today. The sea salt's making it a bit rough." Tillie was ready for hills, so she fired off her sandboxes and charged at the hill. The freight cars tried to slip on their brakes, but Tillie was sure to beat them and press on. As she took on the final slope, James hurried up with a small vegetable train from Boston. He heard a nasty hissing sound near Tillie when suddenly a bolt shot out from one of Tillie's pistons.
A bolt?
"Rocketing rivets!" shouted James. "What's gotten into you, Tillie? Don't think I can manage this hill, eh, James?" said Tillie excitedly as she made the final incline. "No, I mean there's something wrong inside of your..." Bang! A huge noise rocketed through the station yard. "What was that?" shouted Station Master Scatterbrain, who'd been in the yards checking over a delivery from the main line.
Oh,
"Robbers? Fireworks? truck backfiring? I think you'll find it's a breakdown, said a worried James.
Uh-oh.
Tillie had finally made herself run too much. Her conductor clambered into her cab and examined her controls. Oh, I knew it, she said. She's clean out of water. Boiler tube explosion seems to be it. You worked yourself hard enough to boil water for the whole town. Damn piston glad too, called a workman. It's a miracle she made it to the yard safely. Tillie felt horrible. She felt like she had readied herself for the scrap heap. Later that evening, Mrs. Ella visited the Colville Works, where workmen were busily freeing Tillie's glide. Tillie's wheels shuddered a little bit. She feared the absolute worst. But instead of a, "Tillie, what did you do?" or a, "Tillie, why wasn't the job finished right?" she heard a very worried, "Tillie, are you all right?" I think so. I'm really sorry about the train this morning. Oh, never mind the train, said Mrs. Ella. What matters right now is how you feel. Well, I do hurt a little bit, but I thought the train was a big priority, so I pressed on. I appreciate hard work from my engines, she said, but I also want to make sure that nobody gets hurt. If you sense that something is wrong, you've got to let someone know. That's just using your stack. Yes, ma'am. I'll be sure to be more careful next time. And one more thing, Mrs. Ella said, as she exited the works. Yes? Asked Tillie. Get yourself a good night's sleep. And after her little trip up the line, Tillie was sure never to push herself too far again. Really useful engines need their brakes too.
Thomas and Tracy enjoy helping out at the Bluesburg Steelworks. They love visiting their friends Phoebe and Ralph and giving them much-needed help. Ralph has constantly kept busy running the manager about and shifting ladle cars into place, while Phoebe takes on long journeys to Bluesburg West Junction and beyond. But the yard had many orders to fill for the next few weeks, and even the extra two engines weren't able to keep things running. That was when Diesel, Airy, and Bert came in. Diesel was in charge of the docks at Gardenia Bay, while Airy and Bert had been brought into the Sodor Ironworks for a period. Together, the engines had a known reputation for pranks and mischief-making around other engines. They arrived one busy morning. Thomas and Tracy were arranging a freight train for Big Tim to bring out when they oiled into the main yard. "Hello, Puffpo," said Airy. "So the big old steelworks got handled with a teapot on rails. Figured they'd send for some modern diesels to help with the extra workload." "You'd be modern 70 years ago," quipped Ralph. "Now, as manager's diesel of the Bluesburg Steelworks, we're gonna need you to..." "A rusty matchbox on wheels for a boss. Boy, you really need proper diesels around here," Bert greasily chirped. "Why, you? All right," said Phoebe coolly. "Now that we've gotten to know each other, let's get to work. Diesel, dockyard deliveries. Harry and Bert, you're working the pier." And she confidently went back to the steelwork shed to work.
You tell
The
me.
diesels did prove to help out a little bit, but many problems soon arose with their presence. They shoved trains into the wrong sidings, took any chance they got to make fun of or play tricks on Ralph and Tracy, and Diesel would bump Thomas or take the right away from him. Altogether, the three engines were gradually getting fed up with the Diesel's trickery. Phoebe, on the other hand, wasn't particularly bothered. No matter what prank she got, she took it all in stride. "Thank you for arranging my freight cars, Airy," she said to him after getting bumped with freight cars. "I really needed the washdown, Bert," she said when shunted while taking on water. "Your brakes need checking," she said when bumped by Diesel. All in all, the freight engine was proving to be very tough to break. And Diesel and his cronies were more determined than ever to push her to the edge.
Uh-oh. I smell
Next morning,
trouble.
Thomas and Phoebe were sent to Selgrip City with a heavy freight train. They were to be transferred to another train heading out for Pennsylvania in the afternoon. Make sure to mind yourselves while we're gone, puffed Phoebe, and mind yourselves if you have to go through Bluesburg West. Huh, said Diesel. We can handle that yard easily. And determined to prove they were capable, he requested that he, Harry, and Bert be coupled to the next train heading up through there. There's a 12 o'clock express to go to Folston, but you'd better watch out there. It'll be rush hour. But the Diesels weren't thinking or listening. They were too busy thinking how clever they were to realize what they were getting themselves into. Nor had they been paying attention to the freight cars in the yard. Who are they to boss us around? Punting us like footballs around the yards. This is Phoebe's yard, and Ralph's too. Let's teach them a lesson, boys. The Diesels were soon on their way with their heavy freight train. Although advised by the conductor to take at the very least a transfer caboose, they chose to take it as a triple header. The Diesels on the other railways have no trouble hauling it all at the front with no van, so why should we worry? But they have forgotten that Diesels on the other railway have special devices to minimize the usage of brake vans and cabooses. Bluesburg West is a very dangerous yard for a careless engine. There's few signals located throughout it, and engines must take care and pay close attention when entering or exiting the yards. Engines must always be prepared to give off 4 short whistles to alert the signalman in the control tower that they are there. But Diesel and the twins hadn't bothered to remember. They just hurried through the tunnel to the junction. The car's chance had come. On! They yelled. And with a mighty shove, the cars took the Diesels by surprise and surged the speeding engines into the junction. The signalmen were shocked and put in a full-on panic, frantically trying to avoid a collision. 2 mainland Diesels nearly hit them at the entrance. They almost hit Callie at an intersection, and Douglas nearly lost his tender. Whew, said Diesel. We're home free now. But they weren't. They hadn't accounted for Alea, a little shunting engine who was pushing a line of freight cars to go to Gruffer Harbor. She was entering the main line. Oh no! Screamed Diesel as he shut his brakes hard on. Then disaster struck. Diesel was on his side next to the crash, dazed, confused, and bruised. Some of Alea's cars had been thrown right off the track, and with Harry and Bert derailed on the switch, no one from the main line could get into the junction. Hang on! Shouted Alea. I'll fetch a crane and send for a few others! By the time the mess was cleared, Phoebe and Thomas were returning from their big run. Phoebe was a little bit entertained from the debacle. Well, 3 Diesels too big for their buffers couldn't manage steel cars, eh?
Oh dear.
Diesel was fuming. Well, if you treat wagons and engines like that, then it's gonna bite you in the tail lamp, she said firmly. Oh! Right. Shall we try and haul these cars to the yards? If it helps a bit, said a tired but still willing Thomas. It took some time to tidy up the mess, but soon everything was put right again, and Thomas and Phoebe hauled away the wagons to Boston. What about Diesel, Larry, and Bert? Well, it wasn't long before the Colville works set them back up and running again, but they don't mess with steel cars anymore, because they know they'll try to fight back.
Jason Jr. Tracy. Tillie. Story stops. Oh, we already saw this one. Big Wheels. We've already seen that one. Hold on, guys. The other one was a,
We all come from
I say that's enough for today. So I'd like to say thank you all for enjoying this, and hope you all, and I hope to see you all again soon, guys. Thank you all, and so see you all again. Bye.